And we're back. Yeah, so we're back. Quite a quick turnaround this time, Dave, compared to our usual 4 year turnaround or 3 year, whatever
Yeah,
it was.
get the ball rolling, especially with Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were both very enthused by our discussion the other day. Got us both quite energized to just talk about films again, and especially like you said, Star Wars, especially this original trilogy. Just really, it's just amazing. It's just great. So and so easy to talk about. So we thought we'd just go again.
Yeah, we definitely relit our passion for this because this is something we love. So we just talk about it. If you guys enjoy it, brilliant.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about The Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5. Um, this was released in 1980, a long time ago now, and all the stars from the original Star Wars are back, plus a few, one main character, Billy D. Williams, coming in as Lando Calrissian. A very memorable performance by him in this one. And yeah, I think, just to, I guess, do you want to go through some pros and cons, or do you want to just jump straight in, Dave?
Let's just jump in. I think
Yeah,
I've written a few notes down just in prep for this, and I've
cool.
put the Empire does strike back, and I think that's such a key. The Star Wars titles haven't always been spot on for what the film is, but this one couldn't have been a better title.
Yeah.
Um, this is my personal favorite Star Wars
Okay.
film. Growing up, it was actually Return of the Jedi, but as I've got
Mm.
older, it's this film. I think there's so many reasons why. This doesn't follow the traditional movie rules of a good guy, a character arc, and then builds up to beat the bad guy. This is every single good person in this film gets beaten down, and it's a struggle throughout the movie, and they can't really do anything.
Mm.
Um, and it's just you're left at the end like, well, what the hell was that? It's such so odd, but it's very memorable, and yeah, just I love this film for so many reasons. That being one of them.
Absolutely. And I think with this one, um, they went straight away. They went for something different that we hadn't really seen.
Mm.
Probably, I'm assuming in films at that time, an alien ice planet, um, where the rebel bases. We see that little they probe droids, the little black droids making that funny noise,
Mm.
and that's all you see right at the beginning. Um, and I think it cuts to. I think we see Luke. Luke is the first character we see, isn't it?
I think Luke's in Hoth and he's on his tauntaun
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
around, and he spots that thing and gets taken out by the snow the snow monster.
Like the
Can't-
abominable snowman. What I don't
Yeah,
even know. I can't remember what it's called, but the big giant like yeti thing.
the one
Um,
from Monsters Inc. Right?
basically, yeah, essentially, yeah. But I think isn't the story behind that particular bit, because obviously he gets his face slashed up and all that, because Mark Hamill had been in a car accident and he actually looked quite different than
I
uh
didn't
than
I
the
didn't know
original
that,
Star
but
Wars.
that
I
definitely
th-
sounds good.
I'm pretty sure there's something along those lines, like his appearance. Not that he looked like crazy, but obviously in the first one he's so young and youthful, and in this
Mm.
one he looks very different. He's got a scar and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's why they did it. I think he was in a real life accident or something like that.
Oh, that's
Maybe
interesting.
maybe I misremember, but yeah, we so obviously he gets taken by the Yeti, and we see him really for the first time using the Force properly.
Mm.
Obviously he sort of used the Force in the first one, but actively using the Force to grab his lightsaber and um, kill the Yeti ice monster to get
Mm.
away. Obviously, I
I mean,
think,
even in the it shows how vulnerable he is because
yeah.
he just about makes it, and then when he
Mm.
gets outside, he collapses and basically he's going to die, and Han Solo has to come and save him.
Isn't this where he also sees um, he sees the
As
Force. He sees Obi-Wan, doesn't he?
he's Ben, yeah, Ben, and he's like Ben, and he's like, you must go to Dagobah and meet Yoda, who once instructed me.
Yeah, yeah. So he sees him, and then obviously I think Han sort of goes through the ghost or whatever to help Luke, and we get Han Solo cutting. It's pretty grim, cutting open his tauntaun and like
Mm.
moving Luke. I remember as a kid, I absolutely always thought that was. It made me feel sick because it was like, oh, like he's going inside these guts, and you know, it's just awful. But you know, you really felt like, oh god, they've opened up this animal, and he's pushing Luke in to obviously keep him warm or whatever. But
Bear
yeah,
Grylls, Bear Grylls in it. Huh?
yeah, exactly. It was. I just remember really feeling queasy at that when I was a kid. But now, obviously, it's just an awesome moment seeing Han with a lightsaber. But obviously, this is
Mm.
all really setting up the opening like battle scene. So we're getting this, we get this opening bit where we see all the characters, we see Leia, we see the droids, we see everyone sort of where they're at this point, are following the events of the first one, and then obviously it's leading up to this Hoth battle. This Hoth.
Mm.
Uh,
And it's not much. It's not much of a battle, really, is it? I mean, it is
we see
for
some
for
cool
a short.
stuff. So we see some cool stuff. Obviously, we see.
Yeah,
Is it the Atat Walkers? Or the
yeah,
AT-ATs, sorry. I know some people like to not AT-ATs, AT-ATs. Also,
AT-ATs,
they
I
sort
would
of
say.
come like lumbering through the fog, don't they? As they lead,
Mm.
it looks really cool. And we get to see some new vehicles as well, snow speeders, which are
Yeah,
really fun. I remember I loved those things because it was like it's got a harpoon on the back and this thing, and it's like it was just like another vehicle that's just so good. This snow speeder, and they take out a couple, but basically they start to get overwhelmed, don't they? And
yeah,
the point is they need to get away from they end up saying, look, we've got to just evacuate because we're getting wiped out. And
yeah. And
uh
Vader's closing in
yes,
big
because
time.
he's obviously been chasing these guys for a while. So I believe luke luke gets away quite easily, doesn't he, in his X-wing, and the others start basically get chased forever. The others basically are chased for the rest of the film, aren't they?
Do you know what? I can't quite remember, but I remember. Yeah, I think the Millennium Falcon just about gets away, and Vader's there. And I think we were right. I think Luke
Yeah,
gets away first.
yeah, I
Um,
think so. I think that's right.
but yeah, it's again, it's just they're doing absolutely everything they can and just getting away
Mm.
or just escaping the might of the Empire.
And just to comment
And
again on just these things that they've designed, we have the stormtroopers, and that sort of elongated mask cover thing that makes them they're snow troopers in this one, and it's the attention to detail is just brilliant. Like it's just so many of these little things that just you remember, just so memorable. And yeah, it's just so great this moment. So
mm,
yeah, so they managed to escape after that really cool battle, really cool opening. It's quite a big moment, and then Luke, following Obi-Wan's advice, obviously heads off to Dagobah. I think they set a course to Dagobah, and Han, and he obviously gets split up from Han, Leia, and the droids, and Chewie obviously are running away
mm,
from the Death Star. Sorry, not Death Star. Oh, I guess it's the Empire. There's Death Stars. There's Tie Fighters, and they are trying to stay away from them. And I
mm.
think the next thing we see is I guess we go to Luke, right? He arrives in Dagobah.
Yeah. So you've got two stories. Well,
Yeah,
you've effectively
they
got
sort of
three. You've
split,
got
don't they?
effectively
They
you've
sort of
got three
split at that
stories.
point.
You've got Vader's point of view, and you see him massively improved from what he was in the first film, and he was amazing in the first film. But here he is like
Mm,
killing officers to
yeah.
get what he wants. He is in charge until you get the Emperor scene where you first realize actually there's someone holding the leash.
Mm.
to Vader. So yeah, you've got Vader's story, you've got the love story of Han and Leia with the Falcon, and the Falcon, won't go to light speed, it's broken, and they're stuck in an asteroid field. And then you've got Luke's journey of trying to train and become a Jedi, and he's struggling, and it's amazing because you kind of want to cut to all of them. You want to cut to all of these little stories that are going on.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's such an amazing film. So well paced as well. Just keeps you wanting more each scene.
Yeah, because they give you a little slice of all those stories going on, especially obviously the two main ones. We see Vader, cut to him, for example, asking all those bounty hunters um, to find the Millennium Falcon and find those guys. Um, but let's concentrate on Luke for this moment. Obviously, he lands on Dagobah. Um, he lands, sort of crash lands essentially, gets out of the
Mm.
ship. He goes into the swamp. They're sorting themselves out. He's looking for this Master Yoda. He has no idea if Yoda's even. Well, I think he even says to himself, like, "What am I even doing here? Like, what? Why am I here? Why did I make this
Mm.
journey?" And then this, you forget if you haven't watched it for a while, you forget how crazy Yoda is in this moment. This initial time we see him, right? Like he is like very like Muppet, like crazy, just making all these weird noises. He's like hitting
You just
R2D2 with his stick. He's
you just
throwing
think.
all
I
the
remember.
food
I
out.
remember when I first watched this. I just thought he was just a random local
Yeah,
that would eventually take Luke to
to Yoda. Yeah.
Yoda, and it did catch me off guard. And it's an amazing moment when you know, the boy has no patience. And he just turns into the real sort of Yoda.
Mm.
And you're like, oh,
And is
and
it
then he shows
because
him
Luke's
the
still a
best.
bit wary at that point, isn't he? And doesn't he? Is this the bit where he lifts the the X-wing out of the water? Is that what happens, or is that a bit later?
So, so he does go through a bit of training, running with him on his back.
Yes, of
He's
course. Sorry, I
lifting,
jumped a little bit.
he's
Yeah, yeah,
struggling,
yeah.
he's struggling to lift the rocks.
Mm.
And, this Yoda says, you judge me by my size. And
Yes, that's
eventually,
exactly. So
um,
yeah, what? Yeah.
one one of the best lines in the whole of this film or any film is him lifting up the X-wing with the music pumping,
Mm.
and R2's going crazy, puts it down, and then Luke says, "I don't believe it," and Yoda says, "And that is why you fail." And it
Mm.
just that's the end of the scene, and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that is savage. That is cutting deep right there." And because it's true. That's
Yeah.
that's why he's going to fail. He doesn't believe it.
Because we're seeing like Luke, using the Force, like you said in that little training montage where he's like flipping and he's swinging on ropes and stuff, and you're like, okay, like he's starting to improve and all that stuff, but like Yoda is saying like, yeah, nah, this is done, like,
Mm.
you know, um,
And yeah, eventually we get the setup where he realizes his friends are in danger,
well,
and
hold
then
on, let's cut to them. Let's cut to them quickly
you want to go through
before.
the whole thing.
Well, just a little bit in order, because that hearing what they're up to, and then the
Okay,
decision that happens later, just because there's some good stuff there.
go on then.
So I think they've tried to hide in the asteroid field away from the Empire. They then
Yep.
hide on the Death Star. They attach themselves to the Death Star, and then correct.
They find a huge asteroid and hide in it,
They
and
hide in
they're
it. It
actually
ends up being like a
in.
monster or something, right?
It's called an exogorth.
Oh,
Um,
it's got a name.
yeah, a sort of space slug, and yeah, they that bit with the teeth, it's
Yeah,
closing, and
yeah,
they
yeah,
fly out of the mouth, and I always liked that there was lights on the front of the Falcon at that point. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, they hide on the side of I think the Super Star Destroyer or just a Star Destroyer,
And they
and they
float
just
away with
go.
the rubbish, right?
Yeah, and
We
not,
see
but you see Boba Fett as well is following
in
them.
Slave One, right? Like he's in his ship, and
Correct.
he flies, and you're like, oh no. So I think Han's idea is like, oh, I know a guy. I know where we can go.
Mm.
to hide. Essentially, I've I've known him for a while, and but I don't think he's not a ringing endorsement. He's sort of a scoundrel like me, so whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And he's like, I think he's like, I don't know if we're going to get on, but yeah, doesn't he something?
yeah, like he's sort of like, oh, he's a bit like me, but he should be able to help. So they end up flying
Mm.
off to obviously Cloud City, um,
Hmm.
and they land, and we are introduced to Lando Calrissian, who sort of walks up, and they're sort of looking at, and he's like, you got a lot of nerve coming here, and he's like,
Mm.
oh no, like, and then he gives him a hug, like, yeah, how you been, buddy? Like he really, it's like this funny little switch, a bit like
Yeah,
Yoda, right, where you're like that initial like, oh goodness, like,
plays it so well because he comes out with a load of guards, doesn't he, as
yeah,
well?
yeah.
And then the guards are like, just turn around and just, yeah, it was just a prank.
Yeah, and he's like, and he gives Chewie a hug, and you again, it's a bit like what we were talking about in the first one, where there's a history. You instantly know, like, oh, there's more. There's clearly lots has happened between these people that we have never seen, because he like
Yeah.
knows Chewie, and can, he obviously knows Han and stuff, and he asks about, doesn't he ask about you looking after my ship? He's like, your ship,
Mm.
like, and they've got a little banter, but basically offers like, look, you can stay here as long as you want. Um,
Yeah.
and just make yourselves comfortable. But you get those. There's little things like, oh, something else is going on here because C-3PO disappears. You don't
Mm.
really,
The vibes are not quite right, but they're enough to keep you like,
okay, yeah, all right, like he's doing all right. And I don't know how long they're there for. Feels like not very long at all. Like it
mm,
feels like they're there for a couple of hours or something, and
yeah.
then they're like, "Oh, come for dinner," or that evening or whatever. Like, come for dinner, and then they go to dinner, opens the door, and there he is, Darth Vader, sitting at the end of the table casually,
Mm.
and they try and shoot him. He blocks it with his hand. Amazing. Just
I mean,
force.
Han shot first then, and it didn't matter, did it?
He did. He shot first again. And then Darth Vader yanks the thing out, and basically we find out he's like, I had no choice. They came before you got here. They said, basically they're gonna they're gonna kill everyone here if I don't give you up.
I mean, he says, "We'll be honoured if you would join us." What the hell happened after that? I think Family Guy have done a little thing, didn't they? It's like, what did they talk about at this
In
dinner
that, yeah,
party?
because the door closes, doesn't it? It's like, what did they talk about? Was he just
That's
do you reckon he was just choking them the whole time, just like force choking
yeah,
all of them?
probably drinking his food for a straw.
So, um, so obviously at this point, we know he's sort of doing it because he wants Luke to come, doesn't he?
Hmm.
He's drawing him near because the Emperor wants Skywalker. He
Well,
wants.
he allows. He says to him, doesn't he? We've got a new enemy, and in this moment, you don't realise it, but he's informing Vader that his son is alive.
Mm,
Um, but we, as the audience, don't know
know
that.
that, yeah.
Um, Spoilers, just in case you've never seen this.
Dave,
Um, what?
you're telling everyone.
Well, it's 1980, guys. If you haven't watched this film by now, I can't help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the Emperor is like, oh, we can use him, right? I think is he wants to capture
If he
him.
c- if he could be turned, he'd be a great asset, is what he
Yeah,
says.
yeah, that's exactly it. And so obviously they're trying to draw him in by capturing his friends. And like you were saying earlier, Luke feels this in the Force, right? He knows his friends are in danger, but
Yeah.
but Yoda's like, no, you can't go. You're not
Which I
ready.
always
You're not
found,
ready. You're not ready to face him.
which I always found strange because he says, go and help them you may, but you know what I mean, like that if they die, they fight for nothing. I can't remember how he puts it, but you as us as the audience is like, he's not going to just sit there and not go, knowing that it didn't sort of make sense. But for the sake of how things play out, it looks like they're really wise for saying it. But
I
in
guess
that
I
in
guess
that moment,
because obviously, like you said, we haven't had the full picture, but obviously, I guess now with seeing the films and whatnot, he's obviously he's clearly like, look, if you go, you're either gonna die or you're gonna get turned to the dark side because you're not ready to face that level of you know
yeah,
dark side power. Like you can't handle it, and they're gonna turn you because they're gonna anger you about your friends and family, and this is not what needs to
yeah,
happen. But like you said, in the context of the film, it's pretty unreasonable to say, "Now let them die. Just leave them.
yeah.
Don't worry about it." Um,
And we also get a scene where Luke goes off into this weird place in Dagobah where
yes,
he fights like a dream version of Vader, cuts his head off, and then there's him appearing
yes, which I
in the
guess
suit,
again is that
which
foreshadowing of like, look, if you go, you're gonna turn into this guy because
but
you're gonna be seduced by the dark side. Um, but yeah, so he decides to go, doesn't he? He goes, look, I can't not go. I have to go. I will come
he,
back and
he
finish my
decides to not
training.
go, even though
Is
Ben
also
and
saying, don't go.
you must not go, and he says, but Han and Leia will die if I don't.
Yeah.
Um, and
Doesn't
they
he say
say,
something
yeah,
like he
even
even
Yoda
says
can't.
like then Vader has won, then they have won or something, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Obi-Wan at some point.
I've actually, funny enough, it's on my screen at the moment.
Oh, nice.
It's yeah, so it says yes. Listen to Obi-Wan, you must. The
Mm,
cave. Remember your failure at the cave. But I've learned so much since then. Master Yoda, I promise to return and finish what I've begun. You have my word. It is you and your abilities the Emperor wants. That
mm,
is why you and your friends are made to suffer. That's why I have to go. Luke, I don't want to lose you to the Emperor the same way that I lost Vader. You
mm.
won't. So he's.
But then
That's
there's a
this is
really
kind of what's
nice line.
happening.
Obviously now we know, but he flies
Mm,
off. We can still hear Obi-Wan like, then we have lost, whatever. And then Yoda says, no, there is another.
mm,
And it flies off, and you're like, oh, what does he mean by that?
yeah,
And obviously we know, obviously he's talking about Leia. But obviously at the
yeah,
time you're like, oh, what's he chatting about there? Um, but that's a nice, and it looks really good because Yoda's red, and it's like it just looks really.
yeah.
It just always sticks in my mind that bit. So anyway, he flies off, and I guess we cut back to the Cloud City where one of the most just iconic lines for a character ever happens. And for me, it's just I tried this line on my wife a few times as well, where they're like we want to use carbonite, and it's like, well, let's test it on someone, let's test it on him, test it on Han Solo, whatever. He said, and obviously Boba Fett wants to keep him um because he wants to get the bounty on him.
Jabba,
Because
Jabba,
Jabba
yeah.
wants him, so he wants the bounty on him. So he's like, no, don't worry, I'll like he'll basically if he dies, then I'll give you the money or whatever he said. Um,
Mm.
but anyway, so they're testing on him, and he's about to go in, and Leia's like, she gives him a kiss, like, "I love you," and he just goes, "I know." Ah,
Yeah,
amazing, just unbelievable.
because
What a line!
in that moment, he's dying, but he's still being himself, as he's
Yeah,
being his
it's
character.
it just encapsulates everything that Han Solo is. I know, because he doesn't know he's going to survive. He could
And
literally
next
be about to die,
and
and
next week, you'll find out
whether
what
he lives or dies. No,
next week you'll find out what happens when the roles are reversed, and yeah, he says, "I love you" to Leia, but we'll find.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's such an iconic line because it
Yeah.
really in that line you get everything you need to know about Han Solo because it's just perfect. It's just a perfect line.
How did it go down when you used it on your wife?
Uh, I think no, I think she appreciated it because we'd seen the film recently, so I think she appreciated it. I think
Okay,
over time though it got a bit old.
I might I might use it tomorrow and see how I get on.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a great line, and you have to do it with confidence as well. You can't be timid when you say it. Um,
Okay,
you have to really go for it. But obviously
I know.
he goes into carbonite, comes out, and again, just this, just over and over again, they create this sort of, I don't know what the word for it is, iconography, where again you see the Han Solo and the carbonite like hands up. You can just see it in your. If you've seen the film, you can see it because it's just so. It's
It
just
looks pain. It looks,
he looks like
doesn't
he's
it?
in pain. He's like no, like it's awful. I my I remember as a kid. This is how this how silly I was in terms of just like why are you thinking about that? I always was like, how did he get his hands up? His hands were like chained up. How did he get his hands up there? Because he was handcuffed. Pretty sure at that point.
Mm, that's a
But
good point. Never thought of that. That's
I just
good.
remember as a kid
Yeah.
going, how did he get his hands up there? Um,
Maybe he's had some super strength or something.
maybe the process like melted them off. Oh, let's just
I
say that.
also, I also like in these scenes. We've not really mentioned Boba Fett, but
Mm.
he's a small part in this film. But he's now got his own TV show
Yeah,
based
he's
on.
come a long way from. I mean, in I guess in because I think I saw the originals at yours, Dave. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure in the newer versions they've put lines in from the actor that played Django Fett. I
Yes.
can't remember.
Yeah.
They've
It
put his
sounds really.
voice.
It sounds really different if you listen to the original.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work now, knowing what we know.
Mm.
So I would say that improvement makes sense.
Well, they put the new voice in, didn't they? But I feel like they added more lines in for him, but he's there just saying his stuff. And anyway, so Han survives. He's alive. I think fairly shortly after that, Luke arrives. Right,
Very shortly.
very shortly after that, Luke arrives, and basically they're maneuvering him, Luke, into coming to this chamber. Basically, like they're opening doors and you know maneuvering his pathway to this chamber because he's like, yeah, bring him in. I'm gonna carbonite this guy. Um,
Mm.
and he arrives in that same chamber. Everyone's gone. And actually, was there like a shootout before that? I can't remember. I think there might be, right?
Yeah, and there's a little one,
It's a little
but
shootout, like they like Luke. I think, and everyone, there's a little shootout.
I
But yeah,
think
he
she
had
even tells him it's a trap. But she,
yes, 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 yes. That's exactly it. And but he ends up in the chamber, and this confrontation between him and Vader that's been sort of built up. We've seen Vader. He's choking people out. He's just he's blocking like he's blocking laser bolts. The laser guns in his with his hand, his bare hand. He's doing all this stuff. He just looks unbelievable. And you're like, oh, Luke, I've seen you do a couple of flips, but are you ready for this?
you've got to
And
think they've not. They've been in the same room once in the first film where he shoots the door just after Obi-Wan, and
mm, but
he
that's
puts
it.
this in, and then obviously he's like trying to shoot him down, but they're never in the same room until this moment,
Mm.
and he's just toying with Luke, isn't he? He even says, the Force is with you, Skywalker, but you're not a Jedi yet. And he
Yeah.
knows he's just trying to maneuver him into that carbonite.
And remember, it's the shot of them. It's quite dark in that room, but the lightsabers are bright, and it looks great as well. Just when you're just looking at the film, that
If you look at
clash.
if you can see my screen now, it's sort of happening. Um, well, it's cut to something else now, but yeah, the colors of it, are amazing. You've got the blue lightsaber with the red,
Mm,
um, and yeah,
absolutely.
and it's just them as well. No stormtroopers. No, it's just their confrontation.
Yeah.
You kind of. I remember watching it thinking, "Yes, Luke, you can do this." You know.
Yeah, you do feel like, oh, he's definitely gonna win, right? Like he's
Yeah.
gonna beat this guy, because it's like he has to beat him because they can't not beat him. And so,
Yeah.
like you said, but that whole initial skirmish is just him trying to get him into the carbonite. I think he knocks him into it. He's like, all too easy.
Yeah.
Um, and then Luke like jumps out, doesn't he? And I think And again, we see another amazing bit, like Vader just like launches his lightsaber at him, doesn't he? When he's in like the cables or something above the little
I think
carbonite bit.
I think that might be the next film. I'm not.
Is that
I
not
don't,
in this bit where because he does like a forced jump out of the carbonite bit into the
yeah, he force jumps out. I don't. I can't quite. I
you got
don't.
it
I think
there.
the bit where he throws it is
Oh
in
yeah, is that when he
return.
throws it at the bridge?
Yeah, because he fight. He's like, if you were not. Yeah,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you.
Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, like so Dave has put it on his screen just so he can see it.
He's trying to cut. He's trying to
Oh,
hack him down.
he's just trying to cut him down. All right, fair enough.
But
Um, so yeah, basically so he was trying to obviously just maneuver him there, and I think the next bit we see is just Luke is just surviving. Like he's just trying to not now die because it was like, well, if I can't bring you, I'm just gonna end you. Um,
yeah, he shows some skill, but there's a bit where Vader's not even got his lightsaber lit, and he's just things are just flying at Luke, and it hit him in the head, and
and
he
I think the thing what you can say
falls
about
out.
this one is the actual lightsaber fight is, we've taken it way up to the next level from where we were in the first one. It was
Mm.
really good. You've got a couple of flips. You've got a lot more sort of connection between the sabers. It feels really good. But like you said, we're like, yeah, look, come on, Luke, you've got this. And then like Vader just walks up to him and just starts annihilating him with just stuff off the walls and just he's just knocking him around and Luke can't do anything. He can't defend against any of this stuff. He's just getting hit left and right, trying to survive. But Vader's just annihilating him. Basically, he just starts to get the advantage, doesn't he? He starts getting the advantage. He starts just destroying Luke, and it's such a because you can feel the tide turning. It's like you're like, no, no, oh goodness, no, not another thing. Oh man, like
Yeah,
no, come on, Luke, and he's just getting
it's like
destroyed.
it's just the writing's on the wall, isn't it? And
Yeah,
but you're like, surely something
yeah, like
good is
something's
going to
gonna
happen.
happen, and I think it knocks him outside, right? Knocks him outside,
Yeah.
and basically another again like these original films that you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm very excited by this. But there's so much like stuff that just permeated the 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 zeitgeist, the pop culture. This moment, another moment, uh, which I think is one of those things where people think they know the line, but it's different than what you think.
Mm.
So because he doesn't just say like he doesn't just go um I am Luke, I am your father. He doesn't say that, but everyone's like that's sort of what everyone repeats. Um,
Mm.
Obviously before this he gets his art because again you're like, yeah, come on, Luke, and he sort of gets a little bit, and then just Vader just chops his hand off as well just before this line. It's like, yeah, we all know the scream. You've played that to me many times, Dave,
Yeah.
over the
I
years.
just love the fight. It's the struggle, and then Vader gets caught a little bit, and then he's like, you know what? I'm ending this. Hand off,
I'm just
hand off. And then while he's at his weakness, he's going, look, join me. I can complete your training. And Luke's
is
trying
he
to get
saying he'll
away,
destroy
and
the Emperor as well, isn't he? Like he's just like,
basically, after he tells him he's his father, he's like, the Emperor's seen this. He knows. He's like, you don't know the power of the dark side, and he's trying to entice him as much as he can. He's trying to give him absolutely everything.
and here comes the
And
line,
Luke,
isn't it? So I've
Luke,
just switched
fair,
back
fair
onto your
play to
screen.
Luke. Luke is not giving in. And then it's, yeah, no, I
It's
am
like
your
you killed
father.
my father. He's like, no, I am your father. And it's it's Mark Hamill does a great. He's like, no, that's impossible. And he's no, it's not true.
Yeah,
And his face is wrecked. He's bloodied up and stuff. And it's just such a great moment. And so yeah, it's not Luke, I am your father. It's like, no, I am your father. And
yeah. Which at the time, when I remember watching it, I just thought it didn't. it land because I thought, oh well, that's not true because Obi-Wan's told him otherwise. And then I remember speaking to my uncle about it, and I was going, "Oh, what's that about?" And he was like, "You got to wait till the next movie." I was like, "Oh," and he didn't tell me anything, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't confirmed until Return of the Jedi. So
Mm.
this scene didn't land for me like it probably should have.
I felt
Because I sort of
I
thought,
feel like when I watched it, I can't remember 100%, but I feel like I was like it was like a little bit of shock, like oh wow, like I can't
mm,
believe it. Like this, so such a big reveal, like you said at the beginning, Dave, about this film being very different. Um, you know, all the people knocked back on their heels. Luke is arm cut, his hands cut off. Han's been whisked away in carbonite. Leia's just like, what the hell? I don't know what's, she's just escaping. Everyone's on the back foot. The Empire looks like they've taken, they take the win in this film. You know,
absolutely.
you
And
know that.
to wrap the rest of the film up, Luke commits suicide effectively. He didn't know that he was going to get caught. I'm being serious. In that moment, he's given his life up, and he got lucky with falling down that
You
tube.
know what? I always felt like he used the Force to hit that thing. Right?
No
That's
way.
that. No,
I just think he gave up. I think he
you
that's
think he just jumped to I'm dying. That's it.
I, I do. Yeah. Look at this. He didn't know he was going to land on that some
No, but
chute.
I'm not saying he knew that. My feeling was he jumped and thought I'm gonna like maneuver using the Force into this thing
Be
at some
interested.
point.
I'm sure out there somewhere we could find the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm sure
But
there's yeah, because
it's
that'd
a,
be
it's
really
got a bit
dark
of
if he was
secret.
just like I'm just gonna kill myself. That's it. I
But
feel like that.
this is where Luke and Leia,
Yeah, true.
use the
It's a pretty dark.
Force
It's a
to
pretty dark
communicate.
ending. Um, But one thing, I guess one thing we didn't mention is you do see the Emperor in this film, but it's very different than again the original Emperor, which but you showed me. Again, I always say this because you had the original
Mm,
versions of the films. So this was before the special edition, the actual VHS Star Wars original versions, and you showed
mm,
me the original Emperor with his face that was just like it was crazy looking the original version, right?
He had like one eye
Of
was
what?
bigger than the
Yeah,
other,
it was crazy.
and then to think that they used a completely different actor for the Return of the Jedi in
Mm.
the time.
Yeah,
Um,
and obviously since then they've changed it quite a few times. I
yeah, it
think they've
makes
changed
sense
it
to
once,
change it.
but
Makes
now it's
sense.
just Ian McDiarmid, isn't it? In that
Yeah,
bit
and
that you see him.
it's pretty much the same lines. There's maybe the odd thing here or there, but it does justice to what it was before. But
Yeah.
they narrowly escape to and the film ends with them
Mm.
meeting up with the rebels and talking about a rendezvous somewhere else, and you're like, that's
Oh.
the end of the film. Da, 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 da. What the hell?
And you're
What
like,
kind of
what?
the hell ending is that?
Yeah.
What the hell?
It's a because they're looking at obviously we see Luke with a robot hand. This cool little shot, and
Yeah,
they're like, and that's sort of it. And Lando's taking the Falcon to go and find Han. Um.
yeah. Now,
And yeah, like you said,
let's put this in perspective for the Marvel fans out there. When Infinity War hit, you had a year to wait to find out your answers to certain questions.
mm.
To your dark ending. When this film came out, you had to wait 3 years for Return of the Jedi.
Was it really
That is
3 years?
crazy. 3 years,
Wow.
3 years, and you didn't know what the hell's going on. That is quite a dark 3 years for Star Wars fans.
Yeah, that's a long time to wait. Can you imagine that? 3 years. That's crazy.
I mean, it was worth it,
Yeah, of
but
course. But yeah, like you said, very somber ending to the
mm,
film, and this film overall is just again it holds up so well. It looks great. The story's great. The acting is great. The music is just incredible as usual. Special effects looking great as well. And I completely understand why this is people's favorites. I feel like if it wasn't for a little bit of nostalgia for me, with Return of the Jedi, there's a few bits in there that I really, really love. this
Mm.
would probably it would be the best one. I wouldn't even be. Yeah, this is probably so. Okay. So how about this? This one is probably the best Star Wars film, but Return of the Jedi is my favorite. Um, out of this
Yeah,
trilogy.
I understand that.
Yeah, I think this is the best one. Like just across
I
the
don't.
board.
I don't. If anyone said Star Wars: A New Hope was their favorite,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be. I
Yeah, I
wouldn't
think that's
argue
that's
if
the good
anyone said
thing.
any of the originals. They all have a very different. They all come together as a great trilogy, but they also stand alone really well on their own. I think that's what's great about the original trilogy.
Mm. I think the only for me, you know me, Dave. The only trilogy that sort of even comes close to this is the Lord of the Rings in terms of quality across all three films. Like there's
Mm.
not there's not one that's like oof that is a terrible film, but it gets better on the third one or something. There's none of that, or it started off bad and it got better. Like there's none of that. It's just quality all the way through. And like
But
you said,
I tell you what,
you wouldn't think anyone
I
was
will
crazy.
discuss next. I will discuss next week my problem with Return of the Jedi, but I'm not going to bring it up here, so that'll give you something to look forward to.
What I will say is Return of the Jedi was always my favorite, even as a kid. But because of certain characters that you uh, champion, Dave, shall we say, over time, over our friendship, it became something that I laughed at even more. Um, because I used to watch it quite like, oh, yeah, that happened, but because of certain characters that you loved and you really championed, and you were like, look at that, wow, it just made me laugh at those moments even more. So it's very difficult to not just have a fondness for that
I
as well.
mean, for listeners out there, just to make it simple, Ryan and I went to see a Star Wars film, The Revenge of the Sith, and when we came out, Ryan was like, "That was an amazing film," and I was like, "Yeah, wasn't the Emperor amazing? Wasn't Anakin Skywalker unbelievable?" And he was like, "What are you talking about? I'm talking about the Jedi." And I was like, "Yeah, they lost." And from that moment, always had this kind of battle, as it were, which I think Ryan now agrees that I was right. Um,
Yeah,
so
basically. So the Emperor,
anytime the Emperor is in any of these films, there's a little bit of
yeah, absolutely.
disconnect, I'd say, from Ryan's part
It
in
definitely
our friendship.
it tickles me every time I see him now. So I can't. So it added that onto Return of the Jedi for me because he's amazing in Return of the Jedi. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Um,
Okay.
we'll get there.
Anyway, we'll just
Um,
wrap this
well,
one
yeah.
up
Let's
for
wrap
now.
this one up. Any particular moments you want to bring out, or characters, or anything in this film that you were just like, you know what?
The only thing I haven't shared is, when you first meet Boba Fett and, Darth Vader's laying out the law to all the bounty hunters and he goes over to Boba Fett and he says, "No disintegrations," and he points at him and it's like, wow. In that moment, Boba Fett's got a reputation. Boba Fett's, known by Darth Vader,
Mm.
and you're like, you just want to know more about Boba Fett, I think. And
Well, he was
yeah, and obviously at
a
the
lot
end.
of people really, gravitated towards this character, even though he barely was
Mm.
in the film. But people really were like, "Oh man, like Boba Fett," and obviously we've now had a lot of Boba Fett content since, basically. Whether it be
Well, it's quite
seeing
simple.
his, gone,
Yeah, for me, it's less is more, isn't it? And I
yeah,
think it
probably.
keeps your mind wandering.
I think for me, I just always, again, always tickles me is, or just always gets me is Lando. Lando in this is just what he just takes over when he's on the screen, when he's in the film. You're like, this guy, man, he's so magnetic. He's so, you can see why Han, you can see that they're sort of like this, they're friends, and you can see why, and you can see that they've got stuff in common. And he's just brilliant. I love Lando in this film. Um,
Yeah,
and to be fair, like I said, the film's incredible. The whole thing. It's a really good. It's a great second film. One of the best. You know, you know this. Sci-fi. What do you want to call it? Where space opera films or whatever, or just films like these
yeah,
sort of big
sci-fi,
big
sci-fi's
blockbuster.
fair.
These this sort of big blockbuster films. Um, it's it's one of the best ever. It really is. Um,
Mm,
it just
agreed.
it's just everything is on point and firing at 100%. So yeah, great film. Big fan of it,
Mm,
and another great entry into this Star Wars universe at the time. So yeah,
yeah,
I think we'll wrap it up there. Where are we at? So we were talking about length of things. So we're about 45 days. So we'll try and
just want
keep
to
them.
thank you all for listening, and appreciate it. Hope you had a bit of fun with us.
Absolutely, and we'll be back with Return the Jedi to round out this, and then yeah, I guess we'll talk about what we'll do going forwards as well.
Sounds good.
Nice one. See you later.